Hello, this is a recording of a live session from Spark 2021. We hope you enjoy it.
Hello and welcome along. Good afternoon. Welcome to Spark 2021. I'm delighted to be joined by Nigel Shanahan, founder of Make Good Grow and One Mill Street, a brand new co-working space in the town centre of Leamington Spa, and also Ian Harrabin, MBE, Managing Director of Complex Development Projects, and Katie Byrne, Senior Development Executive, also from CDP. This session is entitled Building a Creative Future and focuses on two exciting new developments happening in Leamington Spa. So I'll hand over to you, Nigel. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Bronwyn. Well, this is a bit of a strange one because you can't actually see the other people at the other side of this. So welcome, everybody, and nice to sort of meet you. Yes, my name's Nigel Shanahan. I'm actually a Leamington born and bred. So I went to North Leamington School, born in Whitnash. And my family, my children both went to school in Leamington Spa as well. And just, I guess, a bit of background for me. I've sort of got a software technology background. I had a company called Rant and Rave that was reasonably successful. It was in the customer experience space, and we were based in Coventry, and sold that business in 2018. In October of 2018, it was hard work. It was fun. And we had a great team. We ended up with 120 staff, but it was the right time to exit. And back then in 2018, I was trying to think about, I guess, fairly sort of a philosophical thing about what if I fell off the perch the next day after selling my business, would I be entirely fulfilled and happy? And the answer was that I wasn't. And Desi and I, my wife, we were. You can see some shots there of Mill Street. I'll get into the real pitch now. Desi, my wife, and I were walking in Jeffson Gardens back in it would be September 2018, I think, September, October 2018, and we were talking about Make Good Grow. Make Good Grow was our idea of a platform that would allow people that were passionate volunteers, something we call passioneers these days, matching them up with charities that had business problems that they needed solving. And Make Good Grow was sort of I guess it came about in the last few months of working in Rant and Rave. And then we were walking in Jeffson Garden, a beautiful place. It was a beautiful day, looking across at this building, this red brick building on the corner of Mill Street, and said, you know what, that would be fantastic for Make Good Grow. And we wandered over, and it actually got a sold sign on there. And I think many in the audience may have heard this little story because I use it a lot. But I said to my wife, well, why don't I just call tomorrow and just see? And it just so happened when I called the next morning just to inquire, they said it came back on the market an hour ago. And it was then that the sort of fun and games of buying this beautiful building. Inside, it's got this fantastic wooden roof. It's awe-inspiring. We fell in love with the history of the building. But this building, we started to think, how could we do something in the community of use? And something that had crossed my mind, that I guess the old traditional way of working just seems to have disappeared. It seemed to me that what people now want is a way of working which has got flexibility and stimulation in it. And what we created with Mill Street is a multifunctional space, a building that we hope speaks to all sorts of requirements for creatives and digital natives and businesses in Leamington Spa. It's got 12,000 square feet of space, and the reason I say it's multifunctional because it's got traditional offices that you can rent, but flexibility to rent them on a 3-month rolling basis. It's also got a, you can rent a desk. So instead of having to rent an office, there's areas where you can rent a desk. It's got places where you can book meeting rooms, you can book event spaces, podcast studio. It's got a beautiful cafe. And as I hope you can see from the pictures, we tried to make it in a way that has just got massive warmth and a real welcoming feeling for people. But I mentioned this thing about stimulation, being stimulated by your environment. Obviously, we try to create it in a very beautiful way. But what we're trying to do inside that space is to make sure that members of the public, because it's also a space that every member of the public is very welcome to come into on the ground floor, and to be just involved in the place in a way that they want. So we have members that just want to rent a desk and they sit down and just get on with their work. It's got all sorts of different nooks and crannies that you can disappear into to do different types of work. It's got phone pods, it's got meeting, semi-private meeting areas, it's got private meeting areas, it's got beautiful sofas, and it's just a place that hopefully people can feel stimulated in. No time to launch it, you know, in the middle of a global pandemic. What a time to launch a business. I mean, heck, you know, we're only, it's a family-run business, and we sort of went with it with gusto, and then opened the doors of the business in November, and we were in lockdown, and yeah, so global pandemic. We haven't really. I keep saying that we're driving with the handbrake on in this business at the moment. But I am pleased to say that we've got a number of members that have joined us, sort of believe in what we're doing. Mediatonic is a very successful games company that are opening up a base in Leamington Spa, and they've taken ownership of the space. We've also got some individual developers. We've got people who've got videography skills, and we've also, I'm delighted to say that the Wasps, the players of the Wasps, and some of the senior club members are also using the space for their podcast, but also for, you know, an eye on their second careers, for a meeting space for planning their second careers, and so on and so forth. So we're hoping for, you know, better news from the government before the 21st of June. But if it has to be the 21st of June before we get fully operational, then so be it. I think that from our point of view, we want to make sure everybody in the community feels welcome. We're trying to have this as a place where people feel that they can thrive. And so from our point of view, if you haven't been to Mill Street yet, please pop down and have a cup of coffee and introduce yourself to us. We're a friendly bunch. We've got a nice, obviously COVID, we have to have some regulations with COVID, but we'd love to show you the building. But certainly come into the cafe. It's on a takeout basis at the moment, and hopefully you can see from the pictures that whilst we're not completely thriving at the moment, we're certainly doing more than surviving. Yeah, look forward to seeing anybody that's interested down, and you know, introduce yourself to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nigel, for that. It looks like an amazing, fantastic workspace. So if Ian and Katie, if you're ready, we'll go straight into your presentation.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ian Harrabin, and hopefully you can see my slides just popped up. I just wanted to give you a quick update on where we're getting to with our partnership with the council, 10-year partnership to regenerate the southern end of Leamington Town Centre, the Old Town, as the creative quarter. So the whole idea is to actually bring the place to life. Parts of it are a bit run down, and yet it's always been the focus for things alternative in Leamington. So the idea was to catalyze everything around what is there, to build on that, and to bring the area back to life. So very much repeating what's been happening in other cities, in places like London, and very much a reflection on the huge creative sector in Leamington and how important it is to the town. So just looking at the plan, which is up there now, this is the original big picture that we presented at day one to look at the opportunities that were the sites in council ownership and also the major sites where we could do something significant. So before I go into looking at individual progress on individual projects, I think the core to this is actually working with other people, with the people of the town, with the creative sector, to not only develop, improve these sites, but particularly to bring the whole area up with it. So, I mean, I think what's been done at Mill Street is fantastic, and we need much more of it. I mean, the partnership was intended that we would help the council to deliver specific sites, but we would also work with other people, working with the council to encourage other people to do things. And part of that, and something that we haven't yet achieved, but I think is to get a package of support together to improve the street frontages in particular, and generally give the area a total lift up. So just quickly flicking through, sort of progress on some, not progress on all. Town Hall very firmly remains in the hands of the council and will do so forever. The community, generally everybody is very much behind this remaining as a civic building, but spaces that are underused, particularly at the ground floor level, and spaces like the council chamber, which may become unused in the not too distant future. So in this case, we're not developers, we're not developing the space, but we are helping the council now to come up with creative uses to actually bring that building to life. And in tandem with that, we're also working with them on the old part of the post office building, the next one down on the river, with the potential to also bring the older part of the building, which is unused at the moment, back into use in a similar way. So creating affordable space for creatives in the town. The long-term aim will be fantastic, and I'll touch on this at the end, but to get the sorting office moved would be brilliant. Not achievable at the moment, but what a fantastic site to have Leamington's first cool boutique hotel that would be a potential real focus for the design creative community. Pump rooms, not a great amount happening on that at the moment, as the existing uses are in there and carrying on, and there's a look at what happens to the less well-used space in the library in the future, but definitely nothing planned for that at the moment. So I'll leave Spencer Yard because that's the main focus of what I'm going to talk to you about today. But looking sort of further down, we've got small sites in Bath Place, the car park there with the disused railway viaduct behind it. You know, plans by others, which are fantastic, we fully support, to try and bring that into use as a Highline Creative Arts Park, in a similar way to New York and being repeated elsewhere around the country at the moment. In terms of Court Street car park, I'll come on to that in a minute, but a major project now we're starting to look at now. Constraints of the site are starting to become clearer, and then some very much smaller spaces in Bath Street. It would be nice to do a bit of an improvement there, and also in that wider Althorpe Street area, running down alongside the railway, between the railway and the canal. There's a lot of buildings there in industrial use where we'll likely be relying on others to hopefully be bringing a bit of creativity into the future uses of those buildings. So just flicking on then, just quickly to the next slide. So just focusing on Spencer Yard to begin with. I mean, you probably all know where it is. It's in the top right of this picture, fronting on to the river and the Spa Centre on the opposite side. Just obviously a very pivotal point just as you come over from the new town into the old town, and potentially has the ability to draw people into Old Town. So then just looking at the individual buildings we have in Spencer Yard, there are 3 buildings in council ownership: the United Reformed Church, the former Dole office and the nursery. And those are the first projects to be progressed now, with hopefully a start on site on restoring and improving all of those buildings early next year. Sorry, towards the end of this year, and completing next year. The individual buildings, they've all got certain attractions. Here's a better aerial shot. You can see the United Reformed Church on Spencer Street, dating from 1836. What you have to remember is this has been there since the beginning of the street, which was only laid out in the 1830s, was the height of the nonconformist movement, and was actually well before the railway actually arrived in Leamington, and at the time when the London to Birmingham, the world's first major railway, was driving through Rugby and into Coventry. To the back of that, we've got the former Dole office, the long building, and tucked in just to the side of the church is what we call the former nursery. Behind the Dole office is the Loft Theatre, and then the area that we call Spencer Yard is the clear space between it. So just looking at then the United Reformed Church, fantastic building, Grade 2 listed, with huge Doric columns on the front. But inside there's a very large space that was actually built for 1,200 people to go to church there. 1,500 apparently turned up for the opening of the building. And down there in the basement were the catacombs. There's no bodies there anymore, but they were built as catacombs, and also the schoolroom. So the challenge working with all listed buildings, and I'm currently working on Drapers Hall, fairly similar Georgian building in Coventry at the moment, built just 3 years before this, is to work very much with the building to keep the features, but also to inject modern elements into it to bring it up to date and frankly to make it usable. So here we are taking the areas of the Metzlin Gallery around the edges, which are currently stepped, and we're leveling those out to use as office space, but still leaving an atrium running through the middle so that you can still experience the full height and scale of the space. And then also linking down into the basement and bringing all of the space down there fully into use. So altogether, lettable space is somewhere just sub 10,000 square feet. So giving you a bit of a sort of an idea of some other images of churches that have been repurposed, but I think the space in there, it's really going to be something special. And at the end of the day, to make Leamington sing, we need to be producing special space that attracts the top end businesses into the area, not just the same old boring business park space. So flicking on again. So this is the former Dole office, we call it, and the whole of the area of the yard has been actually painted with various camouflage patterns during last summer under the Paint the Yard program with local artists. What's really quite interesting is the camouflage history that not a huge amount of people know about outside Leamington. But Leamington was the big focus for camouflage design in the Second World War. The civil defence camouflage establishment was based here, and in a former roller skating rink that's under where the Loft Studio was, I hear. And the camoufleurs, as they were called, were based in the buildings around Spencer Yard. And we wanted to actually reflect that history in what we're doing. Again, this building is going to be converted to design studios stroke offices. And then to the side, we've got the much smaller building in stature, but much bigger on the ground floor, which is the former nursery. So both of those two buildings are about 3,500 square feet. So then just looking at the space in between, we've always been very keen that Spencer Yard was a destination as much as we could make it, and that we'd be bringing people in through a series of events held largely through the summer, but potentially also during winter months as well, with the potential of some form of canopy structure that enabled it to be used in wet weather. And with the sort of restrictions we have with COVID at the moment, it would be a perfect place to be doing street food and getting people together in a COVID safe environment. I mean, there are constraints. We've got the Loft Theatre next door, so we have to be very careful about noise and that we don't impact on them and other businesses. And also in looking at that, we are really keen to see how we improve the connectivity into Spencer Yard. So, you know, the potential even of putting a bridge across the Lem that brings you into the yard across the river, opening up through the colonnade at the front if we possibly can. So taking what is at the moment forgotten backland parking space mainly and turning it into a funkier, cooler space for people in the heart of Leamington. So moving on to the next one. So just having a quick look at Court Street. For those of you that know Leamington well, you'll know Court Street as a car park. The land that's in the ownership of the council also includes the pub with the greeny roof there and the green bit of land at the back. So the Court Street site we're working on is the area of the car park and the area of the pub. And again, early days, because this has been tied up with car parking needs. So the council has been working through what parking it needs in terms of what else is happening in the town at the time. But we are now moving towards a position where we can start to work up a scheme in detail. We can start consulting with people on that detail. But the idea is a mixed use proposal that brings different uses in, again, has lively, active ground floor areas and potentially has live workspace, potentially some artist space coming in at the upper floor levels. And just sort of finishing off then, those are the two priorities at the moment. So Spencer Yard, as I mentioned, is starting later on this year, subject to us finally getting planning consent. And the town hall in tandem, we're working that up, and this has all been made possible by the council's recent securing of £10 million from the government's Future High Streets initiative. Also working with the council on how people move around the area, and particularly with Commonwealth Games coming and the focus on the sub-region with City of Culture, is improving those linkages and also improving the directional signage, visitor maps and everything else that goes with it. It's what we're working on a lot in Coventry at the moment to improve the visitor economy. So in terms of how you get in touch with us, if you can see on this slide, we're very keen to hear from anybody with a view, really. I'm not saying we'll agree with every view, but we try to take people's views into account, and please do feed through our Creative Quarter website. The web address is in front of you. And then just finishing off, really, just kind of wrap up. we've got, I mean, I'm spending most of my time now working in Coventry, where there's just so much happening at the moment with City of Culture and across the cultural scene in all sorts of different types of buildings, which brings that creative industries to the fore in a way that also helps to boost the visitor economy. So real economic output out of this. And I think with both City of Culture coming to Coventry, and actually probably even more importantly, with Commonwealth Games coming in 2022, there's a real opportunity here for Leamington to capitalise on the things that are happening within the sub-region. And just to give you an example, for those of you that don't know me too well, we completed the Telegraph Hotel in the former Coventry Evening Telegraph building in Coventry. It was ready to open last November. We've got a cool ski bar on the roof. It's all in 1950s Mad Men retro style. I even spent weeks shopping on eBay for 1950s flying geese from the States, which are on the wall. And it just had such an amazing response, both from the community and from even the national media, where I was gobsmacked that we actually appeared on the Daily Mail's list of hottest hotels in the world for 2021. And that's all before we've opened, which is a great thing, because as we haven't opened, we haven't had any bad reviews. Also, obviously, Fargo Village, we're investing more there at the moment. We're building an expansion to have a large street food area on 2 levels. Again, you know, Fargo Village going from strength to strength, and we want to bring some of that expertise into what we're doing in Old Town in Leamington. Thank you very much. Back to you, Bronwyn, I think.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Fascinating to see and hear your plans for Leamington. It's only going to serve to strengthen the great creative scene that we have going on here at the moment. So we've got a few moments now just to go to some questions that we've had over in the Hoover app. Nigel, if it's all right with you, I'll come to you first. So people are loving the look of Mill Street, saying it's an incredible space. Have you got any advice to other people or businesses who want to move to the area and develop some of the town's buildings?
Well, I think primarily there's, first thing to say, there's lots of opportunity. I do think that, and I think with the whole landscape changing, you know, the way people work is changing, the way the retail landscape's changing. That brings challenge, but it also brings lots of opportunity. I think there's obviously a supply. You've got to find the right building and secure the right planning permissions. But I would say that what we're quite interested in this new way of working is the blending really of the physical and the digital. People won't always be in that building, but they can be connected to the building maybe in a digital way. So, you know, we're also experimenting with the ability for somebody to say, I can't actually make it in, but I can dial in, and connecting the physical and digital worlds will become something very important for anybody that's in the same type of space that we're in today. I think also people are wanting to, there's definitely a blurring of the lines between work and play. You know, people want to work, eat and play in the same type of environments these days, and there's definitely a blurring of that. And so the reason I said multifunctional or hybrid type spaces, and those are the ones that Ian also touched on, I think they're going to become very important for anybody that's looking at inward investment into Leamington Spa.
And then just further, is Mill Street now fully occupied? And are there any meeting rooms in there that can be hired out to people?
Yes, it's all the offices are rented. So we have 8 offices there fully rented. Hot desk spaces, which means renting a desk. And there are different sort of varieties of membership for renting a desk. You can have a desk that's your desk, it's always there for you, or you can just hot desk, find a desk. They're available, memberships are available there. but also for members of the public. There's an operating cafe that's open 8 till 4 for anybody to drop in. And yes, the meeting rooms are available to members, but also to non-members. You can hire out the meeting rooms, and there's two of those.
Sounds great, thank you. And then a question for Mr. Harrabin. I'm just going to find it in the chat, 1 second. Do you have any specific plans or ideas for young people to get involved with? For example, connecting with the Warwickshire College group, or working with Creative Leamington, which do a lot of work with young people in the area?
I think we have been. I'll pass that one to Katie, who's more on the ground.
Okay.
Yes, we have been talking to Creative Leamington, who do a lot of fantastic things in the town, which I'm sure you all know about. So we are looking at setting up a meeting with them and using their network to connect with younger people, specifically in relation to Court Street at the moment, and how we can facilitate their needs as part of the development. In terms of consultation generally, we've done a lot in the past to inform the big picture. Also, Spencer Yard, we did rounds of consultation for the public before the planning application went in. So going forward, it will be a similar process. In the Court Street, we will speak to members of the public before the planning application goes in to get feedback. I'd also, as Ian said earlier, encourage anyone who's got specific ideas to get in touch via the website. And we've also got a stakeholder forum, which I'm not sure whether people will be aware of, but again, the link to it's on our website. And the idea is that we've got representatives from different areas of the community. So we've got a representative from the University of Warwick, for example, who, if people don't want to come and speak to us direct, then those people are there to kind of collect feedback from the community and feed it back into us and the plans. So yeah, there are various different ways that people can get in touch with us if they want to.
Great, thank you. That's really useful. And then another question for you both, probably, both Nigel and Katie, we've got come through. Creatives work very flexibly and also very physically. Do you have plans, or do you have already malleable spaces that can change and form to incorporate different forms of creativity?
Nigel, do you want to go first? I don't know.
Oh, thanks for that hospital.
I guess it's kind of asking.
Spaces, Mr. Flexi.
Yeah, well, actually, when we set about the space, bearing in mind there's 12,000 square foot, we did want to actually create motion capture areas as well as the production studio we have. So we have a production studio that allows creatives to record podcasts and YouTube videos, do interviews, do green screen backgrounds, create in that manner. And we looked into motion capture as well, because there's an awful lot of brain drain going down to London because the recording studios and the capabilities seem to be down there. And that's something that we weren't able to do with the, with the finite space we have. What I would certainly say, though, from a creative, what we've learned from the creatives that we're working with is that they do want lots of flexibility. They want structured places where they can get their heads down and work on proposals. They also want creative areas where they can, they can have those conversations with friends and they can brainstorm and so on and so forth. So I think that whole area of being stimulated the whole time and being able to have spaces that are fit for the type of work you want to get done in a day, and bearing in mind that changes all the way through the day, I think is absolutely critical. And I'm sure it will inform, what Ian and Katie are working on.
I think from our point of view, we've obviously got a variety of different buildings and a variety of different things going on in them. I think one of the discussions we're having at the moment is the future of the town hall. It is the town hall, it's the centre of the community, and it's got perfect spaces there that can be used by different people at different times. And what we're really seeing now is people working from home actually are happy continuing working from home part of the time, but really want to get away. They want to be with other creatives for parts of the week. They want to maybe have a meeting room, or they want a shared space. And I think as a property industry, we've all got to be much more aware of that as things go in the future. I mean, COVID has taught us that it was something that we've never done as a business, but the property industry was effectively cramming people into offices like chicken farms with, you know, desks that were shared by 3 or 4 different people. You didn't have your own desk. I think the world's changed now, and I think actually people will be wanting much more space. They'll be wanting space where they can actually chill out, and actually you're coming into the office actually not because you have to from 9 to 5, but because you want to be there to interact with other people. Otherwise you can work from home. So I think it's almost a choice to come to the office, and so you've got to make the office environment adaptable to encourage people to actually come into it. I think some businesses are actually going to have a challenge getting a lot of people back into their offices. Other people are desperate to get out of the 4 walls of home, and the world is changing, and the more flexible we can make the space, the better we'll be able to adapt to that change.
Yeah, and I would add, you know, the adaptability piece I think is critical. So upstairs in Mill Street, what we've got is the open plan hot desk area with resident desk and hot desk areas and some offices. But all the furniture we've got, we're able to move around. So we are able then to run events in the evening. It's got a sort of mezzanine level where, so it doubles up as an event space. And I think that whole multifunctional piece that I talked about before, and that adaptability, I think is really critical. So we hope to be able to have, when the doors are fully open, some really good performances from you know, from some of the Leamington creatives that take a look at the space. I think
the way things are going as well is that the office environment's got to be almost, it's got to be sexy. It's almost got to be part hotel, part leisure, so that you actually are escaping from your home to somewhere different. I mean, you know, just going in to sit at a desk in a really boring office environment, you know, most people would choose to stay at home. So I really think we've got a major change coming, and those people that are adapting to that change and actually providing a space that people want to be in and interact with each other is the way we're going.
Absolutely.
Was that a load of rubbish, Katie, or not?
Oh, no, all very much true. I completely agree with all of that. And for Court Street as well, for example, we know we've got to create a mix of uses for exactly that reason. It's about finding the balance. Yeah, I think that's what we'll be doing across all the schemes, really. It's the way they're going to work, and it's what the town needs.
Yeah, but it's not just the space, it's not just the buildings, it's actually the environment around it. You know, you need the coffee shops to go in, you need the microbrewery, you need actually, you know, your quirky shop. You know, shopping is no longer about, you know, buying soap and washing up liquid. You can do that on the internet. You know, you need, it all needs to be about part leisure rather than necessity. I think it's the way things are going. It's got to be an experience place, and we need Old Town to change with us. We can't do everything, and we really do need existing building owners there and other investors to come in alongside us and work towards that aim. I think it's very exciting, and I think all the bones are there, but it does need investment. It does need targeted effort over a number of years.
Yeah.
Thank you. We've got a couple more questions. This one, perhaps for you, Mr. Harrabin. You touched on it in your presentation. Someone's asked, are there any thoughts about a hotel / townhouse for visiting artists and entrepreneurs? They said this has worked well in Geneva.
Yeah. Yeah, I think great. I mean, you know, the Telegraph Hotel that we've done is kind of part way towards that. It's not a building full of hotel bedrooms. Every room's different, but we've really focused on all of the common spaces with, you know, a bar that you can sit in all day that isn't a bar. You know, if you go to Hoxton Hotel in London, it's just full of people sitting there with laptops, and they're actually encouraged to come in, even if you're not staying in the hotel, to sit there with your laptop and be cool. So definitely a need for it in Leamington. It's just finding the right building and the right site for it.
That's great, thank you. And then lastly, one for you, Nigel, we've got about your company, Make Good Grow. So someone's just asking how organisations can ask for help with you and how that company works. If you could just give us a bit more information about that.
Oh, fantastic, yeah. So as I said before, Bronwyn, Make Good Grow is it's a network. It's dating for good causes, basically. It allows somebody who has got some skills, who's particularly passionate about causes, to profile themselves on our platform, and then have the other side of the coin, the charities and social projects that need some help solving a business problem, matching up. And we facilitate the match up using some software, but also we have a team, a small team, matching them up, and organisations can get involved. So Wesleyan Insurance have recently just signed up so that all of their employees, 800 of them, will profile themselves and get involved in this, and we'll place them with projects. And I think the important part here is the projects have got a start and an end. Sometimes when people say I'd love to volunteer, they're reticent because they sort of think, well, I don't know how committed I need to be for the next period of time. These have got a start and end and a social impact associated with them, and they can find out all that information at makegoodgrow.com. And the team would be absolutely delighted to hear from anybody, even if it was an hour. I'm even reaching out to local CEOs in Leamington, introducing myself and saying, could you give an hour of your time to do a quick fire call with a charity of your choice? Because the impact that somebody at a strategic level can have is quite immense. So you can get involved for an hour or, far more. And we've got 40 live projects as we speak. So we've got some traction.
That's great. Thank you very much. So it looks like we've answered all the questions that were put forward to us. So just for those interested, could you just remind everyone how they can keep in touch and keep up to date with progress and any new initiatives?
Yeah, for us, it's go to the website, which is leamingtoncreativequarter.co.uk. There's an inquiries out, and that comes straight through to the team. So we farm it out to whoever's best to deal with it. And there's stuff on the website, I think, in terms of updates on how we're getting on. At least there should be.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
And the easiest way is to come down to Mill Street and say hello to us. That would be the best. I'd love that. The cafe is operational, but also we're online, onemillstreet.com. And of course, makegoodgrow.com is all one word, makegoodgrow.com is also available. But, I'd love to see you face to face at some point soon.